It's just to try to sit there and feel the surface of your whole material body all at once. I just have found when I first started doing this, I thought, oh, etheric, oh, it's going to be a long time before I know about that. But it wasn't. If you do the practices, pretty soon you come into contact and you start to be able to use it. And I found that when I just did it all, tried to feel my skin, essentially, or the surface of my body, it was easier to feel it. But then we take a step forward and we start to use the etheric energy in that etheric double as kinetic, as aesthetic, as imprinted for visualization, which is another word for visualization is form construction, because we're really creating forms, thought forms. In other words, we're creating and seeing and dealing with the elementals we create by visualization. Now maybe you've thought that that's just imagination. Honestly, in the beginning it is. But very quickly it turns, if you've done it in the proper way, very quickly it turns into really creative visualization. And you can really see what you create. And eventually you can really feel what you create as tangible. Eventually this leads to the ability in the advanced work of materialization and dematerialization in this world. It's easy to do it in the other world, but this world is obviously very hard. But we're only allowed to use it for healing purposes. Because the ether is a holy substance. It's not divine, it's holy. And the difference there is divine is God. Anything coming from God is holy. So this mind supersubstance is coming from God. So it's a holy substance. It's a curing substance, and we have to have a lot of respect for it. We can't just do it just because we're curious to do it or to try to impress people. Some people do that to try to impress people, but they fall backwards and they have to start over. So it's not a good way. Yeah.
Often when the word healing is used, many of us apply that only to the physical body. But can the Holy Spirit also have a purpose for the healing of the emotions, the healing of the mind, and the healing of the spirit on all these other higher levels? So can healing also include a much wider parameter?
Well, first of all, the spirit is in no need of being healed.
No, I'm talking about the spirit revealing itself for the healing of people.
Oh, I see.
Emotionally and psychologically, and not just the physical body.
Absolutely, absolutely. And really, Daskalos, you know, a lot of people came to him for healing, physical healing, and he did it. But he said, I don't put much value in that because the archangels are doing that already. Okay, so maybe that wound on their leg would close in 2 weeks, and he can make it close immediately, like he did in Jerome's case. And
so would increasing faith be a type of healing?
Sure, especially if you're a doubtful person. Increasing faith is a healing of your doubt. Yeah.
Thank you.
Question. So it seems like if you want to be a healer in a lot of diseases from, I don't know, disturbances in the field in your thoughts or in your emotions, then you really have to also be able to do some kind of counseling work.
Some kind of what?
Counseling work to get at the root of the problem.
Yeah, I mean, that's the technique, Daskalos, to counsel people, not by telling them what to do, but trying to help them understand the dynamics of what's causing their problem.
Right.
So it's a type of counseling, yeah. So a good psychotherapist is like a good counselor. It's a very good counselor. Very good counselor. And the greatest psychotherapist in the world was Christ. And what did he do? It was so simple for him. Your faith has healed you. That was a strong, powerful elemental, and the person believed. That made them believe they were going to get healed. Daskalos had healed so many people by just telling something that went into their subconsciousness, and the subconsciousness formed the healing. Because the subconsciousness can heal you, heal incurable diseases. We've seen it many, many times. Or it can kill you, send you to your grave. Oh, I've got this illness. You keep having that kind of mantra to yourself, you will make yourself sick.
So when I had my knee replacement
Yep.
in a couple of months, I could heal, if I visualize it healing faster, it'll heal faster probably.
If and
If I
only
do
if.
it for myself, I mean.
Yeah, it should, very well should, unless you're under some obligation by the law of cause and effect, by your karma.
Okay.
It can't override that. But it can help alleviate some of that, for sure.
There were some studies where they psychic surgery or like fake surgeries where they poke the holes, they put the person under anesthetic, and they didn't actually do the surgery.
Yeah.
And the person believed that they
Oh,
had
yeah.
the surgery and it was
Yeah,
fine.
yeah, that's the power of the subconscious. I've told you this story before, but I'll tell it again because it's so good. A doctor brings his wife, a guy brings his wife and his brother who's a doctor. And the wife has this, she's just sick all the time. They've taken her to all the doctors they could, and they all say there's nothing wrong with her. So it was psychosomatic, it was in her head. She was telling herself she was sick. So they brought her to Daskalos, and they expected Daskalos to tell her that she was just in her head, the sickness was in her head. But he didn't tell her that. He goes, oh, I know about this illness. Oh, this is really, and I know exactly what cures it. There's a plant up in the mountains. If I could find that plant, you could be healed. It'll heal you for sure, because it just works. And she said, well, can you find it? And, okay, come back in 2 weeks. I'll see if I can find it. She comes back in 2 weeks. I couldn't find it. But if I could find it, it would definitely heal you. This went on. He tortured her for like 6 months with this thing. One day she comes back and he said, I found it, and here I've made some pills out of it. Now you take one of these every night with a glass of water and say a prayer before you go to sleep. She did. She came back healed. The only thing those pills were was a little milk and bread made into a ball and dried out. Completely healed her.
Oh, why did he torture her first?
He had to build up the belief in her subconsciousness that this was going to work.
Okay, that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
And
I
she
knew
was
he
wanting
that
it.
evil.
It's amazing.
Did you ever tell her that?
No.
He probably destroyed it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
He did that a lot of the times, but now this isn't advice that we play with other people's subconsciousness, because that's very dangerous. He was a master. He knew exactly what would work, and based on what was in her subconsciousness. So we were talking about the visualization reading to the ability of materialization and dematerialization. Once a week. Now, most people, like I said, came to Daskalos and they had some physical thing or some emotional thing, but a lot of physical things. They wanted a physical healing. And I saw so many cases of materialization and dematerialization sitting with Daskalos. Because one day a week, he would set aside for healing day. So you would go there, and I used to sit next to him, and the people would be out there, and one by one they would come up and want healing. One day, you know what an atrophied leg is. One leg's shorter than the other, right? One day I saw him lengthen 5 legs. Well, I didn't see all of them, but they happened that day, but I saw some. And he lengthened 5 legs in one day. And how did he do it? Well, he would take the person's leg and he would kind of stroke it. But what he was putting etheric vitality into it. But what he really was doing was visualizing the leg longer. So before he started, he'd take this yardstick and show that this leg was, 2 inches shorter than the other or whatever. And then he'd start working on it. He seemed like he was pulling while he was doing, like pulling on the leg. And he'd set him down and measure again. Oh, it needs a little more. And he would do that. But it was way more complicated than you think. He wasn't just imagining the leg being longer. He had to visualize the bones lengthening, the ligaments, the muscles, the tendons, the nerves. All that stuff he had to visualize into that perfect longer leg for it to happen. So you can imagine when you're visualizing a star, it's like, oh, maybe it's shaky and everything. If that would have happened, he would have harmed them. So you have to have very, very high skills to be able to do that kind of a materialization.
And it's through type of attunement with the, or attunement or something with the leg, or is he doing it like in that case independently? You know what I mean? Like if he's going into the nature of the leg and that way he understands it completely and that's how he can visualize, or it's more like he visualize step by step or.
Yeah, I mean he's in the leg and he has to be certainly visually seeing the thing lengthen, all these things lengthen. And also when he's using his material hands, he's also using his etheric hands to work inside the leg.
In
So
that
it's
case,
very complicated.
In that case, definitely Daskalos is attuning it, and
at warning, it automatically happened when once we develop our self consciousness. So he's always at warning, something. That's why he could see everything, then know what to do by the guidance.
But it wasn't really the imprinting, the creative, the aesthetic ether that was really doing the work. It was the printing of the kinetic and aesthetic ether doing the work. It was the creative ether. Because he had mastered those three, he got the ability to use the creative ether, and that's given by the Holy Spirit once we master the three lower natures of the ether.
Okay. So you can't